All right, off and running is what we are right now, as we have three more NBA playoff games here. One of them starting in just about an hour and 15 minutes or so. A little interesting start for Indiana and the Bucks, but we got Clippers, Mavs, and we got the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Phoenix Suns. We got some intrigue going on here today, and two of the best at WagerTalk to break it down for us, as we welcome in the one and only Mr. Teddy Covers in the house, ready to go, as is RC. Man, been looking in the back of milk cartons for you, RC. We missed you here, man. Pleasure to get you back. Mr. Cabang ready to roll here today. And let's dive into this Indiana game since it's going to start in an hour. Boy, oh boy, what a difference a game makes. Great punchback by Indiana there, Teddy, in the last game here. Now they go home. When you look at this Pacers team, the market loves them, 4 to 6.5. Boy, the market's all over Indiana. Are you in agreement with the move here?
Yeah. I have the Pacers up. I wrote them up as a free play on my page. You can visit that and read my full analysis, wt.buzz/TC. Again, wt.buzz.buzz/TC to get the analysis, the full written analysis. And look, I got a small bet on Indiana at -6. When you talked about laying 6.5, even a 7 popping up on the WagerTalk live odds screen, now it's getting a little bit out of my price range. But make no mistake about it. All three of the games tonight, there's only one side for me. All right. Indiana's winning this series. Indiana's the better of these two teams. And if I'm getting involved in Bucks Pacers, it's only on the Indiana side. When you take Giannis and Middleton away from Milwaukee, what are they? Old. Old and mediocre. You read the quotes coming out of Indiana, and this isn't a team that's looking past Milwaukee. They're not thinking about the regular season. This is a team that doesn't have the postseason success that the Bucks have, and they're jealous of it. They've got a guy with a ring on the team now in Pascal Siakam. He's made a huge difference in terms of the mentality for the Pacers. And I could only look, the price isn't right anymore. All right. If you wanted to bet Indiana, I think you've missed the number. And these are the games that you have to stay away from. But if you have to play a game, it's Pacers or pass for me. I don't want no part of Milwaukee. It's not like Doc Rivers has a great history of overcoming adversity in the postseason.
It's amazing. I mean, Siakam has been an absolute beast. I think he's leading the playoffs in scoring there, RC, 36, 37, somewhere in that ballpark, points a game. He has been an unstoppable force. Quite honestly, if they had Giannis, I'm still not sure that they would even have any answer for him. He has been that good. This is a big number for the playoffs with a team with experience versus a team with no experience. So how are you approaching this one?
Yeah, I can only look the Pacers' way as well. I know without Giannis, the Bucks, they struggle defensively a lot more than they do. Even and now that they're going to be on the road, it's even more. But if you look at the regular season matchup, right, the Pacers, they won and covered both matchups at home. They also went over their team total in both of those matchups as well, and that's another angle that you would probably want to take if you feel like the line is out of reach. I feel like the Pacers can get up and over their 114.5 team total. In general, the Bucks have had a hard time trying to slow down this Pacers offense. Other than the one game, I think game one of this series, if you include the regular season and game two, they reached 122 in each one of the matchups, just excluding game one of the series. And to me, their keys to victory, the Pacers, is points in the paint and fast break points. And without Giannis and having that, that lateral power forward that can move in transition, I feel like the Pacers should be able to do that again here. And I know people are going to bring up, the zigzag theory and all that stuff. In this specific matchup here, I just don't see that happening. The Bucks really struggle on the road, 1-10 straight up, 3-8 against the spread. Also 9-2 to the under. They're struggling on the offensive side of the ball. And if you take that and you include, road games without Giannis, 1-3 against the spread, and each one of their opponents in those 4 games went up and over their team total. So to me, the only way that I could look if I was to bet this game is the Pacers or the Pacers team total over.
Team total over 114.5, somewhere in that ballpark, 108.5 for the Bucks. Teddy, the total did, I think, take a tick down from 224.5, somewhere in that ballpark there. I think we're down to 223, 223.5. If they're going to cover this number, is team total maybe a better way to look there if you're back in Indiana, or do you think this thing can get up and over?
So from a total standpoint, I do not have a strong opinion on this game at all. I think the Pacers are capable of covering if the Bucks trade points with them. I think the Pacers are capable of covering if the Bucks don't trade points with them. So from a team total standpoint, I wouldn't argue with anyone looking at Indiana over the total. We've certainly seen the Pacers make the appropriate adjustments against Milwaukee between game 1 and game 2. That we would expect to see more of the same tonight.
I got it. Have you heard, RC, anything about Giannis's ability to play? Are they just going to hold him as questionable? And have you heard hide nor hair as far as what to expect from him? Because if they lose tonight, pretty good chance we get him, in game 4 if he's able to go?
I don't even know. I to be honest, I mean, it's been kind of when I'm doing my research online and trying to figure out what's going to happen, what's his status, it really is questionable. But I mean, if you think about it, if you read about it, his injury, I would think it would be a longer period of time than just 3 games that he's missing. So even if they do lose here, I still think it's in question whether or not he's going to show up in game 4.
Teddy, you heard anything on him? I mean, it feels like Kawhi a couple of years ago. He's up in the owner's box and he's questionable. Like, wait, what? What do you mean he's questionable? He's not coming back. Giannis not making it in these playoffs, you think?
So I'm going to answer a different question first, and I'm going to go back to this. By the way, totals are 5-0 to the over the last 2 nights. When we talk about all the unders in the NBA, and that's game 1. That can be game 2. It's not a game 3/game 4 trend. And obviously, with the totals getting over-adjusted, again, 5-0 to the over the last 2 nights after that run of unders over the weekend. When it comes to Giannis, okay, I'm only interested in the status. I'm making a series bet. And the only series bet I made was Indiana after lost game 1. All right. Otherwise, well, let the market, let us know, how do I say this? Giannis is as important a player as there is on a floor, all right, for any team. And if he plays, he dramatically impacts the series. But I'm looking at the big picture series. Do I think Indiana's going to win the series? And I do. That's why I bet them after game 1. And the other thing that we're looking at is what happens tonight. And I know he's not playing tonight. So does he come back for 4, 5, 6, 7? Maybe. I'm not worried about that yet.
Yeah.
The only reason you're worried about that now, I mean, and we don't know. You don't know. He doesn't know. All right? They don't know. How can we know? So I really try to spend as much of my time focusing on the issues that I might be able to find an answer for, as opposed to finding this, which I don't have any idea. And nobody does. That's why there's no answer to it.
No, you best just to, if you're looking to dive in any sort of future thing, just assume his ass will not be back here, because that calf injury, and having had it, it's one pivot away from an Achilles, guys. It's just the reality of it, and nothing heals it except rest. And that just, I have the feeling if he could have gone, he would have gone. So I don't understand why they'd even push him back at this particular point. Haliburton is an interesting question too. And shout out to the chat room in here. Big Daddy's there. Eric, John Finley, Cheshire Cat getting going. Anish also loves the Bucks here tonight. Good luck with that. We'll see. Again, Giannis not coming back here tonight. Go ahead, Teddy.
Chris Middleton just upgraded to probable for tonight. The markets have not moved yet on that. I think they will. So that 6.5 is as high as it's going to go. If you like the Bucks, bet them right now. It's not going to be there.
Amen to that.
Actionable information right off the presses for watching the NBA Tip-Off Show. Thanks for watching live. About.
That's right. That's exactly what it's all about. Hit that like button as long as you're here hanging out, getting that actionable information. That would be fantastic of you. RC, from what you've seen from Haliburton here, certainly Not the scoring that we might have been used to him having this year, but certainly made up for it in the assist. Everybody was MIA in game one. He was really good in game two. I see a lot of fading of him here tonight, though, from a point perspective, a lot of backing in the assist perspective. Is that just what we have him? He's been dealing with injuries, too. So Haliburton, to me, is much more important for this team with the way Siakam's playing, being able to dish and being able to hand that thing off and get those assists. I don't know that he's got to drop. What is it tonight? 16 and a half, 17 and a half? And people fading him hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, from a player prop perspective, he's at home, right? That should make a difference. That should give him some confidence, a little bit of a boost. But like you said, I mean, they were able to get the win without him having to go all out, offensively. Yeah, obviously he was taking care of the ball, dishing the ball wherever it needed to go. And his teammates, he trusted on his teammates and they showed out. And I think as a point guard, you have to do that. Get everybody involved. I think one thing that you don't see, from if you think about like the Lakers and stuff like that, right? Like there's not that one point guard there that really is able to lead that team, distribute the ball, tell people where they need to go. Haliburton is that guy for the Pacers. And if he's on point doing that, leading this team, the Pacers should be able to take care of business tonight, whether or not he scores 16. And he showed it throughout the season. He doesn't have to score for this team to win. He just really has to put his trust in his teammates. The only thing is, with Ben Mathurin not there, that is a bit of, offense that needs to be replaced, right? So who's going to be that guy here in this matchup? You never really know, but maybe an uptick in points, but it's not necessary for him to do it. So that's the only reason why. Like you want to think about motivation and all that when you look at these player props. And to me, his motivation is to win, not put stats on the scoreboard. So to me, it's a tough call to fade or follow, that points prop, but it's not necessary for him to do it.
And I'll tell you this, if the Bucks and Doc decide that no more from Siakam and they start rolling help towards Siakam and Haller, it's going to open up some things for Haliburton too as well. So it'll be interesting to see what, if anything, they can do to slow down what has been just an absolute beast with Siakam in this game. 6.5, 223.5 is the number now. That game again, guys, coming up in about an hour here, 5:30 Eastern, early start for that one here. And then, of course, we'll have Lakers. I'm reading the people just destroy the Lakers in the chat. I'm so sorry. The Clippers, rather.
Yeah, sorry about that
tonight.
I'm sorry I brought that up.
The poor Clippers, rather, heading to Dallas to take on the Mavs. We're seeing 4.5s now. The money has slowly been coming towards Dallas, pushing it up. The total has also been jacked up. 209, 209.5, 213.5 now here, Teddy. I thought it was good that Kawhi got a game under his belt here. I thought he looked better in the second half than he did in the first half. He's going here tonight. Yeah, it's just a lot closer series than I kind of thought it was going to be here to this point. What are you thinking about this matchup here tonight in Dallas?
I mean, he's still officially listed as questionable tonight with a knee injury. For Dallas, Daniel Gafford is questionable. Tim Hardaway Jr. is out tonight. And Hardaway Jr. is someone I always like him on Dallas. I'd rather him in the lineup if I'm backing the Mavs. But like I talked about with Indiana Milwaukee, all right, after about game 2 of a series, I'm only going to bet on the team that I think is going to win that series. And in this instance, that team is the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm only looking for spots to bet Dallas. I'm not looking for spots to bet the Clippers. Is this the optimal spot to bet Dallas? Laying the price, Hardaway out, Kawhi in, LA coming off the loss. I'm not convinced it is. So I lean Dallas. If I've, got to make a play on this game, it would only be the Dallas side. But boy, this feels like a series where we're going to see a fair few close games. This one might well be one of them.
Certainly does feel that way. I thought he looked pretty good there, RC, for a guy that is going to be questionable, it feels like, for the rest of his career. we're never really going to have a pretty good idea on whether or not, Kawhi Leonard is actually going or not. But from what we saw in the last game, and you never know, I've always said he's a guy that moves the needle for me. So if he is playing and he is healthy, they're a better team here. But are they good enough to go on the road and beat Dallas in this spot, who, like Teddy just said, they got some questionable injuries themselves here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Teddy brought up Hardaway, and he played really well during the regular season. But towards the end of the season, like his spot in the rotation was not really that solid. I think. I mean, they've been able to kind of figure out what they wanted to do from a team standpoint, especially after the trade deadline. Bringing in Gafford and PJ and kind of switching to a more defensive minded team, and that's what they've really done since then. They've been a strong under team. And it's because of their defense. Obviously, their offense kind of took a hit as well. And towards the end of the season, the Clippers' offense didn't look that great, and their defense didn't look that great either. So to me, there's a lot of things to look at. I know Teddy also brought up the fact that the Clippers are off a loss, and on the regular season, I know it's different than the playoffs, but the regular season, they didn't really show up the next game. 13 and 18 against the spread, following a loss, and as a dog in general, 7 and 12 against the spread. So this is really not that great of a spot for them in general. But obviously, like I said, the playoffs is a little bit different. Maybe they take it a little bit different here. But to me, their defense, Mavs defense, is really the biggest, difference maker between these two teams. And from a total perspective, this is something that I've looked at historically for 4 versus 5 seeds, right? And I brought this up in a couple of shows, one of the last shows that I was on, but 4 versus 5 seeds, if you blind tail unders on a 4 versus 5 seed in the first round of the playoffs, since 2018, the under is 41, 16, and 1. That's 71.9% to the under. And to me, it makes sense because these 4 versus 5 seeds are so closely matched, right? And that's pretty much why, they go under. They're matched both sides, offensively and defensively, more to the under. And if you add into the fact that the first 2 games of the series went under as well, and the total continues to go down. Obviously, from open, it has come up to 213.5, but it did come down from what was it, 228 or whatever from game 1.
Yep.
It even hits at a even more even higher rate to the under in game 3. So from a total perspective, I can only look towards the under, and from a side perspective, I think their defense continues to dominate here, and they get it done at home.
So to your point, Teddy, because you said, listen, the first games were one thing, and we're starting to see this trend here of some overs now across the board. 209.5 is what they had this thing out last night, and the market is saying, we ain't buying it. We're going nothing but over here. So do you think the market in some spots here over the next day or so in these game 3s, they've overreacted and the market is reacting to that for the books?
5-0 to the over in the NBA playoffs last 2 nights. Yep. Again, you talk to anyone, and I talked to a million people, and everyone's talking NBA under, playoffs under. Oh my God, you're looking at this under trend. That's still the narrative, even though that's not even what's happening right now.
Yep.
This, to me, feels very much like an under series. All right. Dallas's full season stats do not correlate with their current form when it comes to defensive numbers. The Clippers have elite defensive capabilities that sometimes we saw in the regular season, sometimes we didn't. It feels like an under series. That said, this is no joke of a move. This is a big wise guy move, and it's significant. As you mentioned, 209 last night, and it's all sharp money betting this over.
Yep.
So there's someone out there telling somebody something about pace, and maybe someone's going to push pace tonight in a way they haven't in the first 2 games, and that's why this number has moved the way that it has. So, again, not a bet that I'm making. I lean unders in this series, but this is one instance where I will respect the sharp money telling us unders not the way to go in this one.
104.5 team total for the Clippers, 108.5 for the Mavs, 2.5 in the first half for Dallas as well is what they'll be laying early in this game. And that was an eye-opening move this morning going, whoa, this is interesting because we didn't see that kind of movement in the other games, but we have it here for
can I ask a question real quick, Joe?
Shoot.
Could I ask, especially Teddy? So, like yesterday we had the Magic Cavs game that ended up going down to like 199, I believe, right? And then it went all the way up to like what, 201 and a half. 201 and a half. Prior to that 3-pointer by who was it, Merrill? They were at 201, right? Is this the case where you talk about the sharp movement, right? There's 4-point gap between the open to where it is now. Could it be the case where, so just pretend Merrill didn't make that 3-pointer. They ended up at 201. That would have stayed under the closing total. With the playoffs being that sharp, the sharpest move in that number, would you think there's still that gap in there that would say, all right, 213 and a half might be a couple points too high now? What happens if we see the sharp movement come back down? Do you think it's another tell that maybe it's moved too much or whatever it might be?
So when I'm thinking about the sharp money in general, there are lots of times I'll bet against the sharp money. I could care less. All right. They're betting stats. They're betting season-long nonsense. They're betting, the sharp money moves aren't the same as my moves because we're reacting to different information. All right. I'm always looking at current form. I'm always looking at player quotes. I'm always looking at coaches' quotes. I'm always looking at things that I saw because I watch a lot of NBA. And the sharp money doesn't pay any attention to any of that stuff. It's numbers. All right. In this instance, of course it's possible. I mean, when we think about what's the most likely ending total in this game, it's somewhere between 209 and 215. You make a little bell curve, and and you'll understand like that's the most likely total. So it absolutely could fall between the opener and the closer tonight. But when you're talking about the bell curves for totals as opposed to for sides, for totals, it's a lot flatter of a curve. For sides, it's a lot sharper of a curve. And that means that you're going to have more results closer to the point spread when it comes to sides than you will for totals. So, yeah, it's possible, Ron. It really is. But it's not if you had over 209 and a half or 209 in your pocket, I wouldn't argue with taking under 214 and see if you can cash them both.
Kind of crazy, right? They win game one without Kawhi. You know what I mean? They got all sorts. It's like a zigzag. This feels, Teddy, like the one series where we might get a little bit. You win one, I win one, you win one, and then game 5, then it's over in game 6. This just of all the series feels like we could just be going back and forth with these two teams.
I think Dallas is the better of the two teams. I think Dallas will eventually find a way to win the series. Whether the Clips can steal another one, whether they can steal 2 more, it's quite possible. But we'll see some more zigzag. We saw some zigzag last night with Orlando, Cleveland, with Philly and the Knicks. And we may well see some more.
Holden serve on their own home court. Let's see if they can do it again here. Dallas tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time, by the way, to tip on that one. And then, of course, the late night game between Minnesota taking on the Phoenix Suns here. And boy, somebody loves Phoenix because everyone's betting them. 3.5 last night, 5 now. I'm so glad everyone has the confidence in the Phoenix Suns because I sure as hell don't. And it drives me absolutely crazy. 209 as an opening total. That is starting to come down a little bit. 208's now here. So, RC, give me your impression of this this Minnesota team on the road taking a desperate Phoenix Suns team. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm siding with, if you want to call it the public, I am siding with the public. I do think that the Suns win today, whether they cover the 4.5 or so, that's another question. But I mean, if you look at the regular season, they dominated the regular season. They covered in all 3 matchups, and then all of a sudden it flip-flops in the playoffs here, right? The Wolves have dominated, won both games by double digits. If you look in game 1, the Wolves took advantage of the offensive glass and in the paint. All right, in general, they were plus 14 in the second chance points, plus 18 points and then in game 2, Suns made adjustments, but then, all of a sudden they couldn't take care of the ball, right? The Wolves scored. This gap is crazy to me. Wolves scored 31 points off turnovers compared to 2 for the Suns. That is such a ridiculous stat here. And one thing that I looked at is the difference between how both of these two teams did on the road versus at home, and there is a pretty significant gap between both instances, right? So I looked at the Suns, as road dogs versus home favorites. As home favorites, they average about 7 more points per game. And then if you look at the Wolves and how they do versus as home favorites versus road dogs, they score about 8 points less. So the offense is flip-flop here, and there's specific situations, whether that translates to the playoffs, and that's one thing that we haven't seen yet, right? Because we've only seen the 2 games in Minnesota. But if the trends tell us that, then we would think that the Suns offense shows up a little bit here from a trend perspective, right? If you look at it historically, if you look at teams down 0-2 and home favorites in game 3, they've been profitable, right? Since the 2015 playoffs, 21-9 straight up, 19-11 ATS. But if the team is coming off a double-digit loss, which is the situation the Suns are in today, they tend to come back pretty strong. 15-2 straight up, 14-3 against the spread. Obviously, these are trends that look at historic things that happen in situational spots. You still have to see if the matchup lines up. And for me, I do think that the Suns can go back to what they did during the regular season and what made them successful, which was sort of the mid-range there, get going in that aspect. And they do better at home there as well. So those things aligned. So I had to think that, the Suns might bounce back here, get the win, and even cover the spread.
Teddy, I got to tell you, everything that I thought was going to happen this series, I could not have been more wrong across the board through 2 games. I'm thinking that this is an awful matchup for Minnesota because such an elite rim-protecting team was going to be rendered useless because of how good this of a mid-range jump shooting and perimeter shooting team this is with the big 3-headed monster. And yet here we are 2 games in, and KD is a net minus 44 in 2 games. Like, that is not what I thought was going to happen here. And quite honestly, with the question mark with Grayson Allen, I think Karl Anthony Towns is starting to get into form, and I think they're in trouble here. Can they get this first one and basically put them to bed here tonight?
So this has been my best series so far. It's been as easy as it gets. I had Minnesota game 1. That was pretty easy. I had Minnesota game 2. That was pretty easy. If you watch the first, and let's get Ronald on here because I got to ask him this. Nope. Ron, I'm putting you on the spot because I know you watch these games.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there. I watched game 1, and Minnesota was dominant, and Phoenix had no answers. I watched game 2, and Minnesota was dominant, and Phoenix had no answers. What changed in game 3? I mean, just because they're switching home courts. You read the quotes out of Minnesota's locker room, man, that team is hungry. You read the quotes out of Phoenix's locker room, they're like, well, we'll figure it out maybe. But did you see anything in either of the first 2 games? Because I saw nothing in the first 2 games that said Phoenix is going to step up. Was there something you saw that I missed?
No, I mean, so we talked about it like real briefly right before the show aired, right? Like, we saw the Magic show up in game 3. And you mentioned, the quotes were different. Like you said, the quotes were different for the Magic versus Cleveland versus how the Suns are compared to the Wolves. But, I mean, you got to look at, I obviously the quotes are a little bit different. The feel, the vibe of those quotes are a little bit different. But, if I look at the matchup specifically, right, and I look at the games that happened in the regular season, they did well against this Minnesota team. Obviously, the Wolves have showed up in the playoffs. They're hungry. Like you said, AE is a dog. There's no doubt, doubting that. But also, we got guys like, KD. KD he hasn't gotten, I feel like he's not getting the respect that he needs. Booker, obviously, he's still trying to get that chip, and Beal is still trying to, make a name for himself, saying, I'm still that guy. They got 3 top guys there that can score at the mid range, which is something that, the Wolves, obviously, they could take They play great D in the paint. They have good perimeter defense. But during the regular season, the Suns had success in the mid range against this team. If they can get there, get it done, and which typically happens, like I said, they played a lot better offense at home. Obviously they're switching courts, going from East Coast to West Coast. Minnesota's in East, right? We're not saying they're in the West. They're traveling, right. So there is this travel that goes into play here. And from what I looked at it, Minnesota going from home to road, they tend to struggle defensively, right? And I said that when they're a road dog, they give up 8 more points per game, on the defensive side of the ball. So I think this is a situation where we see that happen. Offense picks up for Phoenix, defense, takes a step down for Minnesota, and that's the way that I saw it. Whether the quote said it or not, I still tend to believe that the Booker will still want to, and Booker and these guys still got a lot to fight for.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot at all, Ron. Last point that I'm going to make on this, and I'll be done. The Phoenix Suns, I believe they led the NBA. I'm not sure because I didn't go, but I'm pretty sure they led the NBA. They won 15 games this year in the regular season without covering the point spread. So there's a lot of times they won, but not as much by what compared to what the markets wanted to. Minnesota, only twice all year did they cover without winning as a dog.
Yep.
It's worth noting who those two opponents were: Denver and Boston.
Yep.
Denver and Boston, the two best teams in the league. So we know that they're capable, in theory, of stepping up for this.
I'll say, say this too, Teddy. I mean, if KD can't figure out Jaden McDaniels because he's done an amazing job, it's over. Like there's no way.
And Jaden McDaniels is getting the love. It's not just McDaniels. It's Kyle Anderson and it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And that trio of perimeter defenders, I don't think all three of them were healthy for any of the regular season meetings. All three of them are healthy now. And with that trio available, Chris Finch always has 2 solid perimeter defenders, 2 elite perimeter defenders on the floor at almost all times. And it's made a huge impact in this series. I don't expect it to change tonight.
Yeah.
What are your Teddy, what are your Go ahead.
He's done a great job on Booker. McDaniels leads Minnesota with almost 40 minutes per game in this series so far. You had 2 days off here, Teddy. So he should be back for another 39, 40 minute plus here, guys, in this game if it stays close. So I'm only saying that because he's done a pretty good job. His number in the rebounding department has been extremely low in the prop betting market. If he plays another 39 minutes here tonight, he's going up and over the 5.5 that I think they have him at here in this game tonight. Go ahead, RC.
Yeah, I know McDaniels a couple years ago, there was an interview, and one of his goals in his career was to be Defensive Player of the Year. So he puts a lot of effort in that side of the ball. But the thing that I wanted to bring up or ask Teddy was, some people talk about, on the road at home, role players step up, right? And they tend to take a dip on the road. Do you kind of see that here? I know you talked about these guys, obviously from the defensive side of the ball, but offensively, do you think that they take a step down on the road here for Minnesota? Just something that I've thought about with road versus home for these role players.
A couple of things to mention here. First is that if there's one role player for Phoenix I'm scared of with a bet on Minnesota, it's Grayson Allen. All right, because Grayson Allen, when Grayson Allen's hitting threes, he can hit 8 of them. Boom, bang, 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 game's over. But we don't know if Grayson Allen's going to play tonight. He's not healthy. All right, so the role player I'm most afraid of is quite potentially a non-factor here. We look at the regular season, all right, and it's real simple. Who wins and who loses on the road in the regular season? The best road teams in the NBA this year in the regular season, Boston and New Orleans. Both of them went 27-14 on the highway. Number 2, there's Minnesota, 26 road wins. They can win on the road. This is not a team I'm afraid, at home, they can only win at home. Again, second best record in the league, or tied for second best record in the league during the regular season on the highway. I think they can win one. I think they can win 2.
Right.
They're going for the sweep, Teddy?
Let me get tonight, then we'll worry about one game at a time.
I love being on the panel with Teddy.
That said, I can tell you flat out, if Minnesota wins
like,
tonight, at -5 or less, I'll be on Minnesota game 4, maybe even higher than that. Again, they're +5 right now. The line moves 10 points. I'll still look to Minnesota in game 4 if they win tonight. Probably.
Center continues to be the biggest issue here for Phoenix against Minnesota here. Mm-hmm. They just, anytime they go to Drew Eubanks, it's a mess. Every time Vogel tries to go to the bench, they basically get destroyed. And that's putting an awful lot of pressure on the other guys. They're getting run off the 3-point line, which is then putting them right into the meat of this defense. I mean, everything I thought they had an advantage with, Minnesota has answered and said, kiss my ass, not this year. So it's been an interesting series. They are on the brink here tonight, though, Phoenix. Do or die. And again, Durant, if you're -44 net in 2 games and that number don't get better tonight, it's over in 4. I'm with Teddy there. There you go, guys. You got 3 games here tonight on the card. Do or die, obviously, in a couple, maybe a zigzag or 2 also in place. We do have a couple of questions coming in. Guys, don't forget to smash that like button for us. We would certainly appreciate that. And Teddy, I know there was some questions. Maybe you can help the Laker faithful in here? Because the question is basically, how do you bring back essentially the same damn team from a year ago that got swept by Denver and then expect to beat Denver again this year and in all likelihood get swept again? So it does seem a little counterproductive to go, well, we were close last year and we're not going to make any really great upgrades here and we'll get swept again this year with Denver. The Lakers are a bit head scratching here.
And you think about all the talent they've traded away to get these guys, the Brandon Ingrams of the world and Kyle Kuzma and on. I mean, if the Lakers just didn't make the trades that they've made over the last, they'd have a stacked roster, but they don't. And they'll, the series will. The series should end in game 4. It in theory could go back to Denver for game 5, but let's not forget they're running into a championship team. The Nuggets are no joke. They're the title holders. Right. They're oozing confidence. They're playing at an elite level. And LA ran into them twice. And LA's going home both times.
Yep.
It's not necessarily the Lakers are awful. It's the Nuggets are really good.
Mm-hmm. We got a ton of, and I don't know if this is just Dan on 12 burner accounts, but a lot of Philadelphia faithful here, RC, in the chat room here. Love what they saw last night there. I mean, 50 burger, right? For the big man here, certainly looked healthy. And, again, there's a handful of guys that move the needle when they're on the court. He is one of them here. Should Philadelphia be excited about what they saw last night? Another win, get back in this, and all of a sudden maybe not that easy? Because I do believe, Teddy, that series was a coin flip anyway, right? It closed before pre-flop. That was the Sixers and Knicks was a coin flip. So it didn't seem that way in the first couple of games. But what do you think, RC, here? Philadelphia very much alive in this?
I think so. I mean, there's a huge difference in their psyche when you're down 3-0 versus down 2-1, right? And to get this win is huge. It gives them some momentum. Obviously I think Embiid with what he's struggling with now, obviously that takes some stuff out of it, like, off-court issues or whatever it might be, how it affects the team. But he battled through it. Obviously, he played well yesterday. But for me, so during the play-ins, I actually thought Miami was going to be the team to face this New York squad, and I had Miami beating New York. And when it came to Philly, I was hesitant just because I didn't know how Embiid was going to play. But by how he showed up yesterday, if he can continue that type of play, New York's going to be in trouble, in my opinion. But, it's one of those things, right? That home and road split and how these teams play in different atmospheres. If Philly can't steal one in New York, obviously, they're going to lose the series, right? Maybe they take care of business like they always do at home, but they got to take one in New York. And that's where the issue lies. Are they going to be able to do that with just Embiid? Other people are going to step up. Maxey, obviously he played well throughout the regular season to the end of the season, and he was a big reason why they were close in the beginning of this series. He's going to have huge games as well. If somehow New York finds a way to make adjustments and stop Embiid, Maxey's that guy that's going to have to take a step up. So there's a lot of question marks, but they got to feel good about 2-1 instead of 3-0, 0-3. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I mean, and Dan, you can put down 6 of those burner accounts. We're good. We're back in Philly. Don't you worry. Teddy, let me ask you a lot of questions. I don't know. Some guys are coming in the chat room. Did we comment one way or the other on the total in this Minnesota-Phoenix game? We saw it at 209. It's down to 208, even at 207.5. Some guys in the chat are saying is available here. You mentioned, and we talked about, we thought the Clippers-Mavs was an under series. What did you think you were going to get in this series?
I thought Minnesota's perimeter defenders would be able to shut down the Suns, and I thought that the Suns would have trouble scoring. And so far, so good in that regard. I'm not looking to play overs in this series. I'm looking to play unders. Under correlates with Minnesota, over correlates with Phoenix. But I didn't play the total here. I just played the side.
Yeah, looking at, let's see here, 102.5 for, looks like for the Suns in their first half. So, or 102.5 rather is the first half total in that game. So if you think it's going to be a little back and forth, a little more defense than usual, well then, I mean, the whole total of coming down to 208 is interesting also, with the line moving up to Phoenix at -5 in this one here. And I think we can all agree that, it's do or die here for Phoenix. I think the biggest game tonight on the board with a lot of folks coming in, there also seems to be a correlation here, RC, with if people backing the Bucks are fading Siakam. Seems like very public way to look at this here, but if Siakam doesn't have that, he is not the end-all, be-all with this team here, but I do think it makes some sense. You think the Bucks come out, then you're backing Dame Lillard, and you're probably fading Siakam or Haliburton in some sort of combination.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot is going to ride on Lillard on the Bucks side, but even if you do fade Siakam, there's still these guys that can shoot the 3 ball, like Aaron Nesmith, and even like guys like McConnell and all those guys. They can run this offense pretty smoothly, and I don't know. Do you want to? It's tough. I don't compare like Siakam to AD, where AD is like off and on, right? Every other game,
right.
He'll have a solid game. Siakam has shown a little bit of consistency in his last few games, so I don't know if I could fade that right now. If that's their recipe to go through Siakam, maybe they continue doing it until they figure out a way to slow him down. But I wouldn't fade him right now.
Teddy, I mean, does it, if you're backing Milwaukee and you believe that Milwaukee wins this game here, then can you envision a scenario in which Lillard is not the center of that?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I think the reason the Bucks lost game 2, or one of the reasons the Bucks lost game 2, was that Lillard tried to do the same thing. In game 1, he took over the scoring in the first half. Team got off to a big lead. Indiana never made a rally. Game 2, he tried to do the same thing. Once again, his teammates didn't get involved this time. They needed the teammates, and obviously, problem for Milwaukee. Yep. Lillard's played as well as he could play. All right, I'd rather be betting Lillard under right here than Lillard over. Okay, I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to match the performance that he's had over the first 2 games of the series. And I think, when we talk about an aging point guard who's suddenly being asked to do a lot more than he had to do in the regular season, as the series progresses, Lillard may be a guy we're looking to fade more and more.
Love that. You agree with that there, RC? It makes sense. I mean, what else can the guy do? I mean, this was this is not, he was never going to be able to carry this team to a series against this opponent in Indiana. It just wasn't going to happen. And sometimes he tries to do a little much. Great first halves, and then what are we getting in the second half from him? So I don't know that I'd be running out to back anything over with him. That's fair, right, RC?
Yeah, I think so. I think the adjustment that they made in that second game was, let's take Lillard out the game and let's see if they could trust the rest of their team to step up, and they weren't able to. So if that's the case, then yeah, man, I think Lillard, if they're gonna continue to focus on defending Lillard and stopping him, definitely an underlook is probably the way to go.
Some concern too, Teddy. I'm getting in the chat regarding the percentage of points coming from Luka and Kyrie. Is that sustainable on these two guys? It's not, right? Well, Hardaway was, I think, their third leading scorer in the season, in regular season. He's out. So those two can't be the end-all, be-all for Dallas and winning a 7-game series, can they?
No. You want the role players have to step up for the Mavs. I mean, it's not a maybe. If they're going to win the series, you need, whoever, whether it's PJ Washington or Derek Jones or Derek Lively or Maxi's got to hit some shots, or Josh Green, Dante Exum, someone who was an impact player for them in the regular season, hasn't done anything here in the postseason yet. Gafford, they need the supporting cast to step up. Win playoff series without supporting cast, not against good teams.
Can't do it.
So I want Kyrie and Luka doing the scoring during crunch time, but the role players for the Mavs will need to step up for them to win this series, just like they'll need to step up for the Clips.
Yep. And what do they say, though, with role players always better at home, Teddy, in the playoffs, right? That's where
some people say
you get the best effort. Yeah. I love it.
Depends on the team, right?
Yeah.
It depends on the night. I mean, it's in my mind, it's not a blanket statement. There are nights where the role players do step up on the highway.
Yeah. You know what you really need is your stars to be available, Giannis. That would really help. That would be maybe the best for everybody involved here, and stop getting on the damn questionable list there, Kawhi. But we got it. 3 games coming up here tonight. Teddy, locked and loaded, I believe, coming up this weekend. What do you got on your page at WagerTalk?
Yeah, you got one tonight. If you couldn't figure out which of the 3 games that I really like tonight, that's your issue, not mine, because I thought I made it pretty clear. Even though I didn't say this is a client play for me. You know what it is. I do have a 5% big ticket play already locked and loaded for tomorrow. 80% run with the big tickets. The NBA has been fantastic. All sports have been real hot. 65% across every sport, every game over the last 6+ weeks. And the NBA, more than 210 units of profit since 2022. Another strong winning season this season. So get on board. 5% big ticket for tomorrow at wagertalk.com, wt.buzz/TC. Ron?
No reason. Zero reason not to head over there. And there's also zero reason, if you haven't figured out which one Teddy's going with tonight, you can watch this thing in loop. You just rewatch it, and I swear to you, it'll hit you here. RC, how about you, man?
Yeah, we got some volume today in the NBA and MLB combined. But tomorrow I also have a 5% play up, and fortunately it's not the same as Teddy. So you guys can grab both if you guys want. 2 5% plays tomorrow between the two of us combined. So really seeing the board, especially these. I don't typically do the 5%. I don't even think I think I can count on one hand how many I've done in the past year for the NBA. So. And I don't think I've missed one this season. And I think going back to 2022, I'm hitting at like a 75% rate, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It was like 28-6 or something like that. So these 5% are rare spreads, and I have one tomorrow. I really like the spot that I'm seeing. That's probably going to be one of my only 5% play at the NBA playoffs, if I to be honest, because. I don't plan to do that much, but there was so much going into this one as far as research goes, and I had it since yesterday. I've been eyeing it, so it's ready to go, and it's up and available on the site already.
Love that. No reason not to head over. Both RC and Teddy lock loaded, ready to go here. It's going to be a huge weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow, Saturday morning, 11 a.m., Eastern time. We'll have last call ready for you guys to answer any of those last-minute questions you have. And, of course, we'll be previewing the games tomorrow. Steve R1A Merrill will join us. We'll be doing a whole lot of MLB with Tokyo Brandon. So make sure you guys come back and join us again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time, for another edition of Last Call. Shout out to Loose72. Trip Universe had me dying, making the argument that Lillard is going to carry the Bucks like he carried the Trailblazers. Exactly where did he carry the Trailblazers to? Where exactly was he carrying them to? I'm just kind of curious. Fantastic stuff, guys. You guys rule. Enjoy the games. Cash those tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up for us, guys. Best of luck tonight. We'll talk again soon.